had Jim Otto, who represents tradition, history. There are so few people left in our culture, whether it be college or pro sport, someone who represents tradition, someone who gives the underdog a chance, someone who stands up for.
We're talking AOC. We're talking Maxx Crosby, and we're talking about the tight end situation here on the Put On Raiders podcast.
Welcome to the Put On Waivers Media Group, home of the Put On Raiders podcast and the Student Body Right podcast. This is your place for the best breakdowns and the best insight for those who fight on and bleed silver and black. Now, here are your hosts, Dwayne Douglas and Ryan Holmes.
All right, Put On Raiders podcast here, Dwayne Douglas here. POR SBR is my Twitter handle, so check me out there. There's a lot of stuff not a lot of stuff going on because it's the little dead period here for the Raiders, but we always find some things to talk about. And I think just kind of going through the Twitter sphere, if you will, looking at the AOC and Garner Minshew stuff. And I think that it seems like there's been a whole split with the Raider Nation about who to side with. And to me, it's just why are we there should be no siding with any of them. It should just be okay, let those two guys battle it out, and then we'll see who is the winner. We'll see who is the new starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Because one thing we have to be thinking about here as the season comes along and time gets closer to the start of training camp and everything like that is do we really want to overrate the talent? As fans do, they will overrate a talent on their team just because they're on their team. How many times have we talked about guys who who are on the Raiders who end up not being on the Raiders anymore? We think it's a big deal that they left the Raiders, and now that they're gone, it's okay, they're not even in the league anymore. There's a lot of guys like that as far as that goes, and I don't want to overrate Raiders. I mean, we talked about Hunter Renfrow on this program a lot. Hunter Renfrow is not even a blip on the radar of any team. He might be out of football coming up soon. He has not signed with anybody. Raider Nation loved them, and I get the fact that Raider Nation loved them and all that stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he didn't really pan out to do much of anything as far as free agency goes. Maybe somebody takes a flyer on him. His old quarterback in Cleveland. Maybe if that happens, maybe that's something like that will happen if somebody gets hurt. But I mean, he's not a guy who people are going to go clamoring for. But Raider Nation for a long time we did. So clamoring for AOC because he was on the same team, because he was on the team last year. Clamoring for Garner Minshew is kind of useless. It's going to be basically, this whole thing is going to be won on the practice field. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's going to be one on the practice field, not even in exhibition games or anything like that. It's all on the practice field. And who Lou Getsy and who Antonio Pierce feel like is going to be their best guys to win the job. So I'm on the side of whoever is the best guy, because it's a truly 100% open competition for the Raiders quarterback position, and we'll see who the best person is. And if it's AOC, it's AOC. If it's a journeyman like Garner Minshew, then we'll just take it from there as far as that goes. Coming up this year, we're seeing a lot of there are a lot of good edge players in National Football League, right? There's a lot of edge players, and I don't want to disrespect any of them, but I see people will have these lists on Twitter, and I know Raider fans get really hot about it because they'll list rank these 4 defensive ends, and it'll say and they'll have they'll have Watt from Pittsburgh, Parsons from Dallas, the defensive end, whose name is escaping me, from Cleveland, all really good players, and they will just exclude a guy who literally plays more snaps than all of them, and is probably more effective or as effective as all of them in Maxx Crosby. I think that's the one thing that Maxx is just like that motor, the way he has improved against the run. We know how good he is in those moments, and like it's just crazy to me. Like you could have a list of edge players. Like you go ahead and list top rank these top 5 edge players, right? And then you don't list Maxx Crosby. Like that's not even like football. That's not even common sense. That's not even anything. Like how do you sit there and just like with a straight face say, oh, you know what, we're gonna name all these top defensive linemen, excuse me, top defensive ends, and we're gonna exclude Maxx Crosby. Like we're just not gonna put him on. We're not gonna put a picture of Maxx Crosby on this list and make him not be part of it. That's just kind of weird and kind of silly. I know Raider Nation gets a little upset about those things. I can't blame you for that because that's something we can all agree on, that Maxx Crosby is great. He is going to be he's on his way to the Hall of Fame if this level of play continues. But he's fantastic, and he does a lot of tremendous things for the Raiders as far as on the field goes. And I just don't see how anybody could leave him off of a list of edges at all. We heard people, we heard the offensive staff talk about, the tight end situation. And the tight end situation is one in which we talk about all the time, and we say, hey, like, remember that, these guys don't play, you don't play, you hear about 22 personnel, I mean, it's 12 personnel, two tight end personnel a lot. You hear it a lot, but like at the end of the day, it's only like 20% of your offense. You know what I mean? So like the majority of offense you're in, you're not gonna be in that offense. But this idea that like it's gonna be a week to week thing here, where like, hey, this week will be Mayer's turn, this week will be um Bauer's turn, that can't take place. Like that, if Bowers was picked that high, like I mean, Devontae Adams will get probably the lion's share of the targets, but after after his targets, it has to be Bowers. And you can make him or make an argument that Bowers has to touch the ball between for him to may have a real impact on this team. He has touched the ball at least 12 times a game. Like we're talking about 12 real touches in these games, which is going to be hard to do, but like they gotta do it because like, you gotta justify picking them that high. You could have amped up on the defense. You could have traded to go a little bit higher in the draft and then and drafted a quarterback. But like you chose to sit there and take Brock Bowers, and that's fine. You took Bowers, and Bowers is really good and really talented. But you have to make sure you justify that pick by getting him a whole lot of targets. And whether he's a rookie or not, like he should be able to. Hopefully, he can be able to come in and just play really well for the Raiders early on in his career, as far as that goes. But there's like a little bit of like, I mean, listen. I don't expect a offensive staff. I don't expect the offensive coordinator to give his game plan. Like, I mean, that would be stupid to give his game plan, right? Don't give me your game plan. We're just laymen's. Like we're watching these games, watching some games on film, watching the games on TV. That's fine. But like, if your game plan, like your real game plan is to, kind of pick and choose and say, hey, this matchup is like who matches up well with Brock Bowers? Like what linebacker or safety lines up well with Brock Bowers? Like very few, if any, right? Let's just be 100% real, 100% honest that nobody really matches up well with him. So, get him the ball and like give him the ball. That's the pick. Like I said, I'm over talking about the quarterback situation. As far as that goes, they didn't draft one. Got to move on, and I'm moving on to like if this is your pick, then I would like to see this pick like be an absolute star or a star rookie receiver for the Raiders. Because he has so much different abilities, so many different things he can do on a football field to help you win. And they do need to score points. So if he's going to help that situation, help everybody score points, then you can't get mad at that part of it, of him scoring points for the Raiders. So hit on some things with AOC, Gardner Minshew, Maxx Crosby, and I'd say, and one more thing about the Maxx Crosby thing too, I would say, is everybody who was on that list of top DNs were teams that made the playoffs, right? Like we all know, like, I mean, he can be he can maybe he ends up being like the Calvin Johnson of defensive ends, where he just doesn't, he really doesn't crack a lot of lists because he flat out because he doesn't make the playoffs as often as Parsons does, as often as Bosa does, as much as Watt does. I mean, those guys make the playoffs all the time. And Maxx is, I mean, he's a defensive end, so it's not on him all the time to make the playoffs. But they got to make the playoffs more for him to get that kind of recognition. Once that happens, I think he'll get more of that recognition that everybody's looking for. But the players know. The players 100% know who is the who's one of the best defensive ends in all of football, and who has that ridiculous motor to keep his teams in games and do all those special things that we know Maxx Crosby can do. All right, over this podcast, quick one here for you, but enjoy it. And as always, Raider Nation, do your thing, man. Do your thing, and we'll see you on the other side. Peace.